Welcome to Kama Kast, where we explore all things consciousness, culture, and connection. Today we're interviewing Shayna Hiller, an embodiment guide, a health coach, and a yoga and meditation teacher with nearly 2 decades of experience. A certified Tao Shamanic Priestess in a way that's modern, inclusive, and genuinely transformative. Let's get into it. All right. Hello. Welcome, Shayna. Thank you so much for being here on the Kama Kast.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I wanted to ask you, you have been doing this work for 2 decades now. You do trauma-informed embodiment, Tantra, health coaching, somatic practice. But before we go into any of what that means, I want to know who you were before all of it. Like, what were the conditions in your life that made you available to go into this deep work?
So before I got into this work, actually what led me to this work was being so disconnected from my body for so many years, which I actually didn't even know I was, because growing up, I was a very sexual person and a very sensual person, but as it goes with young age and having a natural connection with my body, I was shamed for it. And so I shut myself off from my energy from a young age. And that's what brought me to yoga, actually. And I struggled with an eating disorder. I mean, there are so many pieces to this story that potentially we'll get into some of those, and it'll inform some of my responses to these questions. But when I got into yoga, which was a big part of my healing path, I got into it for the wrong reasons, because I said, wow, well, then I can practice celibacy, and I can kind of be in that meditative vibe where I am the witness of my body, but I'm not fully inhabiting my body. And all of this was born from, we could call it cultural conditioning, little traumas. You know, I feel like, trauma is such a heavy word, and there's such a wide range of how different life experiences can impact us depending on the conditions of our nervous system.
Right.
But it's interesting because I sometimes feel like I came into the world with shame for being in a body, and especially being in a woman's body.
Yeah.
Remember the first time I got my period, I thought it was gross. I didn't tell anybody, didn't know anything about it. I wasn't educated on what it even means.
Yeah.
Even when I started needing deodorant, I was like, oh my God, how do I ask for this? Like, I'm becoming a person.
Well, I mean, even like in our education system, like the classes that we have to educate ourselves in the schooling system alone is terrible. I remember my science teacher was showing me how to put a condom on a banana.
Oh, banana, not a cucumber.
And it's like your parents don't have the tools, so it depends, actually. Really does depend.
Exactly. Yeah, it's, we, for the most part, live in a sex negative culture where it's taboo. And, and I feel like for all genders, but for some reason for me, especially as a woman, it was like anything having to do with pleasure and feeling good from a very young age, I was somehow taught or shown that that's dangerous. So, when I discovered yoga later on, which was actually an accident, which is interesting, I was 20 years old, and I was really into high intensity fitness and limiting my food intake. And it was just a form of controlling my body, all the things. Again, as mentioned, the yoga became yet another source of justifying the disconnect and justifying, I want to say, the dissociation that I was experiencing without actually knowing I was experiencing it. Because if you looked at me from the outside, I looked very put together, and I took good care of my body, meditated all the time, ate organic food. Like on paper, things are really great. But internally, no. Yeah. Not exciting.
I can definitely relate to that. I had a very similar journey. And so I want to kind of go into so you got into yoga, and this is what helped you get into this world.
Yes.
And since then, you've traveled the world. You've learned from masters and ran international retreats. You've graduated from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition as a board certified health coach. You are a member of Columbia University's Association of Drug Practitioners and certified through Tao Tantric Arts. My goodness.
It's a lot of
so
things.
many things. But like with all of that, so from where you began to where you are now, from doing all of that in your journey, what would you say is like something that you wish that someone had just told you in the beginning, like about this work, about the body, and what people actually need?
It's a great question. You know, I feel like the journey and even the parts that I didn't know, or the parts that I didn't even know that I didn't know, had to be as they were in order for me to discover the next step on my own. So in a way, I feel like it's actually all perfect as it is. So for example, when I started my practice, I was teaching yoga and guiding people on nutrition and thinking that, oh yes, when we take care of our bodies and we eat well, that's what makes us healthy.
Right.
I did not include anything having to do with emotions, emotional alchemy, the nervous system, sexuality, sexual energy, because I myself was disconnected from those aspects. So it was partial. That said, everything that I teach and share and have gone to learn and be trained in are 1000% a product of my own process of evolution and self-discovery. Like I sometimes feel this like a karmic need or necessity whenever I have a personal breakthrough or transformation or discovery in my body, mind, soul, health. I feel this obligation almost to go deeper, learn more so that I can share that with others, because that's what I've done from the beginning. Right. So yes, yoga supported me, taking me out of a really dark place. It wasn't complete, but it was necessary for that time being. And that led me to discover Tantra, to start reading about Tantra. That led me to the nervous system. That led me to somatic healing. It led me to emotional alchemy. So when I look back, it's all perfect as it is. And many of my clients and the people I work with and my community have been on this journey for quite some time with me and witnessed the shifts and the evolution. And now that a lot of this information is becoming more popular and trending and widely available, especially because of social media. There was no social media when I started learning about all of this stuff. It makes sense, you know, like the old model of like just eat well and it'll fix all your problems. It's like that. I kind of wish that I knew in the beginning that it was more holistic than just one thing.
Right. I can relate. I was a personal trainer for a couple of years, and everyone would be like, I want to train with you because I don't want to look like you. I'm like, okay, but it's not just in the gym, and it's more than nutrition. And that's what led me to somatic coaching, because it's like, in order to achieve this healthy well-being, it is more holistic, right? You can't have one more than the other. It's just
exactly
impossible.
It's a whole lifestyle. Exactly. It's impossible. It's a whole lifestyle, and one feeds into the other. That's beautiful.
But it's not clickbait or an easy fix, right?
No, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. And so kind of talking about where we are today in society, right? There's a lot of talk about like the loneliness epidemic and disconnection crisis, and you've been doing this work for about 20 years, correct?
Yeah.
So does it feel more urgent now than when you started, even in the midst of social media and easy, accessible, information? Like, what is it that you see?
You answered it in the question. Yes. It's so funny. I was just writing an email to my email list yesterday on the only type of AI that I appreciate. And it's, our AI is artificial intelligence, ancient intelligence, like the intelligence of the body. And I actually made reference in this email to what you just spoke to how we're so connected. Here we are. We're able to connect here and connect with whoever is watching this. And information is so readily available, literally at our fingertips. We can just type it in. We've got ChatGPT, all of these. And yet, statistics even show we are more lonely and disconnected than ever. So, yes, 1000%. And actually, that's why I feel like somatic healing and Tantra and embodiment and all of these terms that I had never even heard about even a decade ago. you know, like these deeper terms of the nervous system, regulating the nervous system, having to do with the body and connecting with the body, connecting in real life, in real time with people, community gathering is so important, more so now than ever before. And I'm not against the advance of technology. I think it's powerful. And as with anything, I think it's important to have boundaries, to understand why, to be intentional with how we're utilizing these technologies and these equipments, and to simultaneously balance it out with self-care, with nurturing ourselves, with, you know, when we say taking care of our bodies, you know, it's not just, like you said, it's not just going to the gym and doing what we think we should be doing, but the nurturing type of self-love and connection that is, no matter how far we advance technologically, is encoded in our DNA. Like we actually need to survive, whether it's touch or getting into nature or connecting with our bodies, connecting with other people in real time is just, yes,
it's
right
part
now.
of our own evolution, you know? Like even as babies, like we'll literally die if we don't have touch.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. It's so crucial. And like you said, like as far as technology advances, that doesn't mean that we don't need our own evolution within our own selves and bodies, right?
That's it. And that's what I was getting at when I was talking about, well, artificial intelligence. First of all, it's going back to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, where I study nutrition. That's where I learned how to read ingredient labels and to be able to decipher and distinguish what was healthy versus not is not based on the nutrition facts label of how many calories and carbs and fat and whatever numbers calculated. It's that what's actually in this and how does it interact with my body? And if I read something that I can't pronounce, for example, that is a chemical, it's not even real food, it's artificial, it's clearly not good for me. Right. So when I think of artificial intelligence, like, I don't know, recently something just clicked. I'm like, this is not real. It's very convincing. It feels real. It kind of tastes a little bit real. I could easily get addicted to it, but it's artificial.
Ooh,
and so,
I love that comparison.
It just came to me.
Wow.
I'm like, hello.
Like AI is like our, what, like our dyes in our food?
Low. Yeah, like Red 40.
I love that. That's a great connection.
Right?
Wow.
And it's like, ooh, gosh. And like, just the word, it's like in our face. It's artificial. Yeah. They're not like hiding that it's artificial. So that's what brought me to, okay, AI, ancient intelligence. And, you know, these studies of yoga and Tantra and somatic healing and all of these different theories and even spiritual teachings that I've personally endeavored in learning really all point to the same fact of that the real technology that most of us haven't been taught, and I have a feeling there's a reason for that, because when we know how to utilize what we've been given, we are powerful. We don't need anything. We know how to co-create our own reality and have a miraculous life.
Yeah, we're not easy to control.
Yeah. The technology is in here. The technology is in here. And that's what I'm passionate about reminding people of, because it's really not a learning or a new discovery per se. It's a remembering, a reclaiming, and a coming home to the innate magic within and power within.
Okay, well, that's a perfect segue to my next question.
Look at that. I like when that happens.
I love it. So a lot of your work is about reclaiming presence, power, sensuality, voice, but power over what? Like what power to do what? In your experience, what's the difference between empowerment that's real versus empowerment that's just another performance of the male gaze or maybe even spiritual ego?
Beautiful. What a great question. When I feel that question and I feel into empowerment, it's not this. Right. It's not this.
That's the performance.
It's the performance vibe. It's what we might think of power to be, like dominance or power over. This has actually nothing to do with anything or anyone outside of us. In fact, when I think of empowerment, I actually I see just like a little Buddha, like just smiling, very content unto oneself, like a deep connection to one's own inner compass, inner guidance, inner knowing. It's like a sense of like, I know who I am and I'm so connected to my center and I can't be influenced or controlled by the outer world. To me, that is power. And Another definition of power that I was given by one of my Tao Tantric arts teachers is power is the ability to do more with less effort. It's kind of like the opposite of what we might think, that power is this straining to achieve. And it's like, how can I actually get into alignment with the truth in such a way that things start to flow to me and through me, as opposed to that forceful need to control. So to me, power is the opposite of control. It's the opposite of dominance. It has to do with, I say confidence, but like a healthy confidence, not the type that needs to prove to another. You know, we were kind of talking a little bit before this podcast about, effective marketing being word of mouth, or just being a magnetic human being, where things just start to come to you. And that coming to you and that magnetism is, from my experience, in my opinion, a result of being so connected to oneself.
Right.
I'm not trying to prove. I'm not trying to get that approval from the outer world. And that's a frequency. That's an energy.
Almost like when you were describing that, I was like picturing a mountain, you know, like you just see a mountain so strong and it's so still, and you know that mountain's got it, right? Storms come and go, but it's stable.
That's it.
I love that.
That's it. That's what I feel empowerment is just, that's a beautiful imagery. Nature has so many clues, actually.
I love it.
About this whole game. Yeah, it's a peaceful state of being, ultimately, is empowerment. And that's, it's funny because we use words, and words create images and ideas in the mind of what something looks like or means or feels. And that's why I'm happy to share that. The image that I get and what I feel is a sense of, it's like calm strength. It's sustainable strength. It's informed by that internal intelligence, and it's always evolving.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great question. Thank you.
Thank you for answering with such a beautiful answer. Okay, so I want to talk to you about how you kind of touched about this earlier. So these two words, they usually don't live in the same sentence, and they're trauma and pleasure. How are they connected, and why does healing one often require working with the other?
I love this question. I mean, again, the answer is kind of in the question, that trauma and pleasure do go hand in hand, even though it may not seem that way. We spoke a little bit about this briefly in the beginning of this interview as it relates to trauma. And the word trauma is a pretty intense word.
It's loaded.
It's loaded. It's heavy. And it's kind of a buzzword these days, and it's beautiful that people are waking up to and remembering trauma or traumatic experiences and how to process and heal. So a trauma is anything that negatively impacts us. It can be a physical injury, having a personal boundary crossed when we don't have the capacity to stand up for ourselves, something that happens without our consent, oftentimes in childhood. And the thing is with trauma is it doesn't have to be, I don't quantify trauma as what happened to you and therefore it's a worse or, bigger deal, because our nervous systems and how we're all individually wired dictate how a traumatic experience affects us in the long term. Even being called a name once, being called a slut, can leave a mark, an imprint in the body. And so there's a term, our issues are in our tissues. I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, huh? It took a while for it to really click, but there's science behind it that negative impacts or negative experiences that we've had, challenging times in our lives, get recorded in the body. And specifically, trauma gets stored and stuck where muscle meets the bone, in those connective points. There happen to be the most connection points of that in the pelvis, in the pelvic bowl. Even if the trauma was not sexual trauma per se, it's like it conveniently, gravity will support trauma by just sinking down to the bottom. So many people who have experienced, and I don't really know anyone who hasn't experienced trauma, which is interesting because we can forget it easily. Our nervous system does that. It can actually have us not remember. That's actually a protective mechanism to keep us able to continue going about our lives. And many people can not only survive but thrive in life, even having undergone pretty intense and severe trauma and challenge in life, which is incredible as it relates to the resilience of the human organism. That said, what happened doesn't define us, and we can clear this somatically. We can clear this somatically. So something I've noticed is having the awareness, for example, that I've experienced a traumatic experience in my life is fine, but it's not necessary in order for the healing to happen.
Right.
Even if I don't remember what happened, but I sense that something's off in my body or in my mind or my emotional state, like it can be a product of an experience from the past, big or small, that has, for whatever reason, stayed lodged or stuck in my system. I happen to work in hand with therapists who will share clients with me who the talk therapy is not enough to get to the root of trauma.
Right.
Talking stays in the mind. But again, our issues are in our tissues, they're in our body. So how can we move this energy and process this energy? So pleasure, interesting. What is pleasure? And we might get to that a little bit more a little bit later. But what I've noticed is that when I go into trauma physically, let's say going back to the pelvis, the pelvic bowl contains 29 muscle attachments. So that's all those little points where muscle meets the bone. When you go and get a deep tissue massage, oh my God, we're unwinding tension, right? We're unwinding something that lives inside of the body. And then once we unwind it, energy can flow again, free flow of energy. So pleasure is medicine. Pleasure is a healing force that if I ignore or avoid something because it's painful, right? A trauma point, let's say, in the body even, it festers, it stays. We're not seeing it. We're not bringing light to it. We're not bringing attention to it. So this is a subtle nuance as it relates to the connection between pleasure and healing trauma, is that pleasure may not feel like pleasure in the beginning. For example, if I'm working with someone who's experienced sexual trauma, for example, and I'm guiding them in, let's say, a jade egg practice or a crystal wand practice or some sort of an internal de-armoring practice, there may be physical pain inside of the pelvis. And that pain is important to be addressed, to be seen, to be felt, to be given a voice, to be given a sound. But if I stay with the pain and I just go into the pain and the trauma, it's like I'm kind of fueling the fire in a way. So how can I break the cycle without avoiding, overriding, suppressing, or denying what is actually there that needs to be seen? How can I bring some of what feels good to that point? How can I bring some of what is flowing to that point? Almost like a healing balm. So when we're working with trauma in the physical body, or at least pain in the physical body, we'll want to be with that, breathe with that, stay with that, and then also ask, where else? Where does pleasure reside in my body right now? How can I breathe into that and kind of connect that energy with the potential stagnation or stuckness or pain that I'm experiencing, so that safety can happen, so that softening can happen, so that nerve pathways can reignite themselves and energy can flow again. So pleasure becomes the healing ointment ultimately of pain. Pleasure resides in each and every human being's body, no matter what we've been through. It's usually hidden below layers of pain and shame and emotion. So when I say that pleasure may not always feel like pleasure, I mean, listen, I did not experience pleasure in my physical body until my 30s. So maybe when I was very young, but that's right before I cut it off because I associated pleasure with shame and something horribly dangerous and bad and wrong. So I cut myself off from it. And it started coming back online for me in such a way where I never thought it would, first of all. I thought I was just wired differently. But in order to access that, you can think of pleasure like the bliss, the ecstasy, I had to address the shadow. I had to address the grief. I had to address the sadness. I had to address the anger that I didn't know I was carrying because I was kind of conveniently living from the neck up, just going along with life. So once we start to go into the body, anything that is suppressed, anything that hasn't been addressed or spoken, words not spoken, emotions not felt, will likely begin to surface. So, in my studies in the Tao Tantric arts, I learned about the power of processing emotions free of a story. Doesn't matter why I'm feeling an emotion. What is this about? Why am I all sad all of a sudden? It doesn't matter. There is something happening somatically, similar in breath work. If you've done breath work and you do a lot of measured, deep, fast breathing, emotions may start to surface. So if an emotion starts to surface, to know that that is purifying, to know that that is healthy, to know that that is important for the nervous system to regulate, to know that that is part of bringing pleasure back online, oh my gosh. So why would I deny the roots of the tree, which to me are like the darker emotions, so to speak? So now if I'm having an experience in, let's say, somatic practice that's bringing up an emotion, there's a part of me, there's a part of all of us that can witness what we're experiencing while experiencing it. So that part of me that can witness what I'm feeling is like almost cheering me on in a way. And as I've allowed myself to go deeper into grief, I've found that my capacity to connect to pleasure is so pronounced to degrees that I've never even imagined. Like, all I have to say is, you don't know what you don't know. We do not know what we do not know as it relates to what our bodies are capable of.
Yeah.
And we are all wired for pleasure no matter what we've been through.
Okay. So I want to touch on, so you had said that people who are maybe might be successful in life, and what would be the things that are manifesting in their lives? Like, what is the source of causing someone to know, like, okay, yes, I'm thriving, yes, everything's good, but I still have to do something? Like, what is that? Like, can you give me some examples of how that would manifest in someone's life?
That's a great question. So many different ways, depending on the person. It can be compensating by, workaholism in and of itself can be a distraction avoidance kind of thing.
Well, continue.
Okay, moving along. Food. So a compromised relationship with food, over or under eating to numb feelings. It's like anything that we do in excess to stay busy, occupied, so that we're not necessarily feeling so much. So over, under eating, libido issues, low libido, fear of intimacy, shame around one's own body. Like, again, this stuff we may not know. If you're on the outside, you're successful, everything looks good. I mean, and I've struggled with this back in the day, but internally, I am disconnected. I am judging myself. I am not at home within my own being, which can manifest in a myriad of ways. From overindulgence in whatever it may be, screen time, this, that, where there's a part of us that I believe knows whether or not we are willing to address the root. There is a part of us that knows that something is off energetically, whether it's with our physical body, whether it's with our health, our mental health, stress, anxiety, chronic anxiety. All of this can point to deeper issues that 100% can be resolved, and they can be resolved. I like to address integrating trauma through the lens of curiosity and lightheartedness, and let's get curious about this, instead of, as mentioned, there can be so much intensity around the word that the body starts to contract right away. It's like knowing that, our bodies are incredible miracle vessels designed for healing, designed for evolution and transformation and true magic. Um, let's see what's possible. And like, what if I can hold space for everything that shows up, and I know that that's part of the clearing, and to get excited what resides on the other side, because it's a miracle. That's all I have to say.
So just stop taking ourselves so seriously.
Kind of, yeah.
Just it's okay.
It's okay, and it's all it's all passing through, and there's nothing to fear. Is kind of like what I want to say. There's nothing to fear, even if it's like, wow, I've kept this trauma or this thing conveniently kept for I don't know how many years or decades or lifetimes. And the idea of unleashing that or getting to the root of that can feel very overwhelming for some. Like, I will never come out of that dark hole, and I don't want to have to relive that. But we have to move that energy through, especially if it's staying stuck in the body, because that's the thing, is like, it can manifest as not just, these kind of daily distractions, but it can actually get worse, where the physical body becomes compromised because of it.
Yeah,
So,
chronic pain is huge.
Dis-ease, lack of ease in the body. So it's important.
Okay. So we've been talking about trauma and pleasure a lot. In some different types of cultural contexts, there are, pleasure can be treated as indulgent, frivolous, or even like irresponsible, right? So, but you're making the case that it's like central to health. And what is the argument, and how do you teach someone to distinguish between like pleasure that heals versus pleasure that numbs or reenacts? Like, wouldn't you say that indulging in sex could also be a pathway, right? So what's the difference?
Yeah. The difference is really mindfulness and intention. Mindfulness and intention. And it goes right back to what we were just talking about as it relates to, am I using this to feel or to not feel? Am I using this to avoid feeling something and to stay stimulated? Or am I using this as a way to connect deeper with myself? So it's funny, because when I ask people, what comes up for you when you hear the word pleasure? I mean, many people say guilt. I'm like, oh, that's very convenient. It's like woven into the fabric of society. Right. Or shame, or some unworthiness, or something of that, like I have to earn it. So it is a flip of the mind of what we've been conditioned to believe as it relates to pleasure. Mindfulness, self-trust is also a part of understanding what pleasure really is and how it feeds us. Like, how could it not be what feels good? Does eating an entire box of Oreos actually feel good, or am I using that to numb? Right. Like, it's like our higher self always knows. Sex and sexual intimacy is magical and powerful and potent and healing, and I believe why we're here. Am I using that to avoid something, or because I'm using or trying to prove something or performing, or is it a sacred act for me? I don't think there's such thing as too much, personally, but it comes down to intention. It's not about the action, it's about the intention behind the action and how present am I. So I would say, as it relates to pleasure, like, how sober can I be in that moment, truly, on all levels?
Yeah, I know a lot of people, I mean, not a lot, but I know some people who feel like they have to take substances or something like that in order to get into their body to enjoy sexual pleasure.
Yes.
And so it's like this work actually helps people overcome that, right? And become sober and present, right?
And remember that sexual energy is the ultimate psychedelic.
Yeah.
So
it is. It really is. It really is. You also use like the phrase somatic intimacy. So can you kind of like unpack what that actually means? Like, what does intimacy mean when it lives in the body, not just the emotions or relationship? Like what?
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, somatic intimacy, I use that term sometimes as an alternative to Tantra, which I think we're going to talk about soon also, because that word is thrown around and people have different interpretations of what it means. So I like to bring something a little bit more clinical and relatable to the masses, because I want people to get curious and actually be willing to move in this direction.
Not get turned off.
Yeah, or scared or intimidated or any of that.
Right.
So, intimacy in and of itself, the acronym that I use that you may have heard, into me I see. And through my relationships in all respects, with the outer world, with the people in my life, with family, with loved ones, I am given a mirror where I get to feel into what my truth is. If I'm willing to look, I get an opportunity to be vulnerable, to be fully expressed, to share my truth, my voice, to feel into what's in my gut, and share who I am with another human being. So as it relates to intimacy, I like to just paint that picture that it is an internal practice. It is a self practice. And this is why yoga only got me so far. I was meditating by myself and celibate for a decade and thinking that I was advancing my spiritual practice, and I'm like, I'm so on the right path. Look at everyone down there thinking that they need people to be happy, and I'm just so zenned out. Meanwhile, deep down, it was just a cover up for a deep fear of being seen, and to actually probably a deep fear of seeing myself ultimately fully. We can only get so far on our own by ourselves. And of course, somatic intimacy also includes sensual and sexual intimacy, both with a loved one, a partner, and with ourselves as part of our healing. So as we talk about pleasure, I'm a big proponent for self-pleasure practices. And it's not just limited to the genitals. Our entire physical body is wired for pleasure. And if we've experienced trauma, or if we feel disconnected or out of touch with our bodies, we can de-armor the body through conscious practice, through loving touch, through exploration of what do I even like, what actually feels good for me. I may not even know right now. Awesome. You have a new experiment at your fingertips now. Yeah. So intimacy with self, intimacy with others, and intimacy with life in general. Tantra is a path of devotion. It's a lifestyle of living devotionally and remembering and recognizing the preciousness of each moment and the miracle of each moment and how intimate every single breath ultimately is.
Right.
So many tentacles.
Yes. And you kind of touched on this already, and so I want you to expand a little bit more on this. So you say you use somatic intimacy to kind of not turn people off because of the word tantra, right? So to you, what is tantra? What is this like misconception that you think that people have? And like, what would you like people to actually know that what you've experienced?
Great question. Because Tantra is growing. Tantra is becoming known. The word is known. I think a big misconception is that people automatically, and I'm generalizing, but I feel that many people automatically think sex or think some sort of like weird sex rituals, right, or something super spiritual. Right. So like all of this
like
stuff.
Like chanting and candles.
Yeah, like super
fiery sacrifices.
Totally. I'm seeing all of those images in my head, and it's like, that's not for me. And coming from a background of a lot of shame and resistance to anything having to do with sexuality personally, meanwhile, it was the source of my healing, learning Tantra. I feel like it's not like regulated enough. I tell people when I do the Tantra workshops here at Kama, I tell the participants all the time, listen, you're in my workshop right now, and you could go to a different Tantra class and you're gonna likely get a whole different, and it's not better or worse by any means, but I wanna create a way to transmit the teachings of Tantra that first and foremost feel accessible and relatable. No, you don't have to know Sanskrit or go to a cave or travel to India or wear a special outfit in order to understand. It's the most basic thing. That's the thing. To me, Tantra is so basic. So the misconception that Tantra is only about sex, it makes me sad. And at the same time, it's important because Tantra is a path of inclusion, a path of embodied living. It's a body-based spiritual path. So unlike my dissociated days of yoga, where I'm just sitting there, I am not my body. I am not my emotions. I have a body. Important to remember that this vessel is temporary. Also important to remember that I have a body and that is a miracle and that's a gift. Why are we here?
Yeah.
The body is the instrument through which I get to enjoy the melody, the music, the flavors, the senses, the sights, the sounds of life.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just saying this. Like, wow. And to rejoice in that remembrance that we are given a gift, and to not see the body as a problem, but a gateway, literally a gateway. Human beings are the only species, besides trees and plants, even birds have a slanted spine. We are the only species with the potential for a fully vertical spine. That is why yoga and movement is important, because we are the conduit between the physical realm and the great mystery of the cosmos, whatever you want to call it. We like science is attempting to figure it out, religion is attempting to figure it out, but at the end of the day, we know nothing. And it's okay not to know. It's a mystery. It's like, whoa. And to have that awe and to be so grounded on this earth and to bring that wisdom into physical form. Tantra has various actual definitions and meanings. One is weaving. So we can talk about weaving universal energy with physical energy. We could also talk about weaving yin and yang, or masculine and feminine, which don't have to do with gender. It's the energies that we come from ultimately that reside within us at all times. Masculine energy, linear, logical, pragmatic, action-oriented, feminine, intuitive, emotional, sensitive, subtle. Like let's harness all of who we are. So there's tantric practices for self and with partner that support us in becoming fully integrated humans. And there's this notion of divine union, which one might imagine is, two beings coming together in divine union, but the real divine union in the outer in relationship is really a product of our own inner harmony and balance between our own energies. Tantra is also defined as tools for transformation. And that's really what it's all about. Like just learning how to be so here and to see each moment as sacred. And Tantra believes in ritual. But yeah, that doesn't have to be some sort of crazy seance. It can literally be waking up in the morning and saying a little mini prayer of gratitude, or lighting a candle, or as it relates to lovemaking, going back to your other question, is this an automatic habitual pattern? Am I even present? Or do I sit with my partner and gaze into their eyes and breathe together and take a few moments to honor this God or goddess being in front of me and make love from a place of devotion and reverence? And it can be, doesn't have to be, soft love. It can be whatever it wants to be. But to remember ultimately how precious this physical world is. The physical and the non-physical are not separate. And that's what Tantra is reminding us of.
Oh, I love that. Okay. And so you obviously you have a Tantra for Lovers monthly workshop here at Kama.
Yes.
And I want you to, now that you've explained Tantra a bit, talk to that couple who's listening, or that they haven't come, or maybe they're worried or they're scared. Like, what do you think is holding them back? What do you think that this workshop would actually serve them? Why should they come?
Beautiful question. Well, maybe what's holding them back is the fact that it might feel like it's too mystical or spiritual or something. And too hippie. This is like super non-woo-woo, very grounded, practical. Whether you do want techniques to bring into the bedroom, we'll share some of that with you, and different simple practices. Like we've had people in these workshops who have been married for 25 years, and they leave sharing with me that they feel like they just met each other for the first time in a 2-hour workshop. And something else I wanted to say, that as it relates to like what Tantra is, because people think it's only about sex. It's not, but Tantra is inclusive, so it includes everything. It says yes. It says yes to our emotions. It says yes to our sexual energy, and it sees sexual energy as creative energy. So our sexual energy is the force that can create physical life, but it can also create anything from a new business to manifesting a house that you really want, or any type of intention or goal that you have. Tantric practices can support you in materializing that which was once an idea, because guess what? That's what we are. We were once nothing and now we're something. And this is, this is ancient wisdom, yes, and it's also very relevant and very simple and very basic. Like, just being able to walk outside and see the colors of nature more vividly and hear the sounds of music with more clarity, and to just feel nourished by the senses. The senses are a gift. So that's really the invitation to these workshops. They're fun, they're energizing. We spoke a little bit about sensuality being a natural mood enhancer or high. So we do these in the evening, and it's funny. People will come in sometimes feeling like, so tired, and we're like, okay, just give us 2 hours, and the energy just shifts, and the look on people's faces and the energy is just incredible. What's possible. So don't be scared.
Yes.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
It's really fun, and I will say, we'll give you enough tools and practices to make your own and weave into your relationship and life. Like, I find that these Tantra workshops are a reboot. Someone just last week at the workshop shared that they came because they had never done Tantra, they were just curious, but they came because they were going to bring, he was going to bring his wife or his partner out to dinner and drinks like the usual. He's like, I just wanted something else that was going to connect us more. That was just like a different type of a date night, if you will, that lasts. Date night with benefits.
Yes.
So.
Well, I mean, I can contest to it. I've taken one of your workshops. Yes. And honestly, I was there because I'm the marketing director here, so I wanted to get footage. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring my boyfriend too. Why not? And, we were actually going through a hardship at that point. And I always was like kind of with Tantra, just because I am so connected to my body and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not going to learn anything new. It's fine. And so, little did I know, it was actually really beautiful. It was because he's not so much, and it was really a beautiful opportunity for us to connect in a way that I think was really needed. And it's not really evident, or it's not really clear that that's the thing that you might want or need in your relationship, but it's like once after you do it, you're like, oh, well, obviously that was what needed to happen, right? Beautiful. It was like the way to connect in a way that might not be so obvious. So I want to say thank you to that.
You're so welcome.
And thank you. Also, please go to her workshop. It's fucking awesome. Yes.
Yay, beautiful.
And then I also want to talk about how you're going to have an upcoming talk with us called Kama Talk, and it's going to go deeper into pleasure, intimacy, tantra. We're just scratching the surface today on purpose, just enough to get you a little feels,
a little tease,
But what is the talk about? Like, what is it at its core?
It's going to be a deeper dive into a lot of the topics that we're discussing today, and I want to share more of the science of pleasure with everyone, so that this concept of like, why is pleasure healing, and how to access it in the body, and practical tools and practices that you can take home, because information is nice and it's inspiring, but I also want to share actual practices with people that they can start to apply to their lives, so that you can know, because Tantra and intimacy and pleasure, all of these are experiential paths. It's not something that you necessarily read a book about and all of a sudden it's like, I know now because I read this book.
Right.
We know through the body. So I personally love understanding more about the the science behind something or the lineage behind something. It helps me feel safe. It helps me trust. So I plan to go deeper into that so that you leave not just inspired, but ready to apply these practices to your life for greater health, wealth, vitality, longevity, joy, and miracles.
Yes.
Done.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and so when this talk happens, who is that person that's sitting in the front row? Like who, not just demographically, but where they are in their life, what they're hungry for, like what brought them through the door to come to this talk?
So beautiful. Well, it could definitely be some of the people who have come to our Tantra workshops who just want more, they're just craving more. Anyone who's curious, who's maybe heard the word Tantra or heard about some of this somatic healing or nervous system stuff, and they're curious and maybe even a bit skeptical, to be honest with you. Like, that's the one question that I ask a lot of the people who come to the Tantra workshops. Like, what brought you here? 95% response is curiosity. I don't even know. I'm not even sure what I'm getting myself into. If you've been feeling stuck creatively and you've exhausted your attempts to figure it out through your mind and logical means, that is definitely something that would bring you to this talk, of getting that fresh dose of inspiration and, again, a reminder of what you already know internally in your body, and to just begin to reignite that flame within you. So yeah, feeling stuck creatively, wanting to either deepen a relationship that you already have, to feel more confident in cultivating and attracting healthy, thriving relationships in your life, to grow personally, creatively, and even financially. I mean, there are books, like old school books. Think and Grow Rich, for example, by Napoleon Hill, has an entire chapter dedicated to the relationship between financial wealth and sexual energy. It's like, this is ancient. So, I say follow your curiosity, and if this podcast inspires you, see you at the talk.
Yes. And it will be on June 27th on Sunday.
Yes.
I'm so excited for it.
Yay.
And so before we close out this podcast, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you wish that we talked on, or maybe a final point that you would like to make?
You're so sweet. I really feel like we covered so much.
Yes.
Those questions were so thorough and so perfect, and I'm just happy that this is not a 10-hour podcast. Maybe it is. I do feel like we've been sitting here for a while. So
yeah.
I mean, they're still watching, so I guess it's working. But, like each of these questions I could have expounded on, 10 times more. So I appreciate your space holding and curiosity, authentic curiosity. And now I look forward to going deeper in our talk in a few weeks.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I cannot wait for your talk.
Me too. It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
Yay.